Hey, how's it going, guys? This is your boy Hazzed, and today we're going to be doing an update on 7.2 Frost DK PvP. Going to be doing a nice little guide for you guys, kind of letting you know where we're at after that 5% PvP template strength buff, and kind of going into details about that. So, let's jump into this.
It's who we are, it's what we do, we've come so far, and now we pay the price, so don't even cry. The world is breaking down, and I cannot leave the ground.
For 7.2, we're going to be using the maximum burst spec with Breath of Sindragosa, not Obliteration. Now, Breath of Sindragosa isn't absolutely amazing, but you'll definitely notice a difference in your burst using this ability. Now, the main key for using Breath of Sindragosa is to enhance your damage to the point that you can land kills on targets with healers or two healers is going to be kind of your main focus with Breath of Sindragosa. Now, of course, you're not going to get very much consistency out of it. You get a little bit less than Obliteration, but the damage, especially the spread pressure when it comes to dealing out damage in Battlegrounds, is going to be worth it. Now, with this spec, I'm able to do over 100 million on a regular basis in Battlegrounds with I'd say pretty minimal effort, not even having a pocket healer. So what we're going to go through is go through these other talents. Obviously, we're going to be using Murder's Efficiency with comboed with Gathering Storms. Comboed with Breath of Sindragosa is just going to be our way of just dumping maximum runes, keeping up our breath. And then from there, of course, we're elongating our Gathering Storms. And the only difference between the PvE spec and the PvP spec at the moment is the fact that we're not going Hungering Rune Weapon because we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket with Breath of Sindragosa. We'd get more burst out of going into Avalanche. We'd get more now burst. We'll get more, if somebody CCs a target, you have 5 seconds to kill the target. You want that damage now. In PvP, that is very important. So obviously, that's where we're going to be going. As for the level 57 talent, we go in Freezing Fog. Now, this is actually kind of important because the 5% strength template PvP buff is good for our character overall, but on abilities like Freezing Fog and, of course, Sindragosa's Fury, those abilities kind of like a Howling Blast, scale off of attack power. Now, that's actually going to not only increase it by that 5%, but since it scales off of attack power so much, it's going to increase it a bit beyond that, a little bit more, a little bit of extra juice on the end of that. And right now, our Freezing Fog, Howling Blast are actually hitting for 600k crits, which is actually a pretty large amount when they're coming off a Howling Blast. It's definitely going to be the way you get your damage up there. It's going to be the way you pad your DPS. It's going to be the way you step above the other classes when it comes to AoE. Now, a lot of the other classes definitely have quite a bit of AoE, which is kind of crazy to see. But overall, right now, our damage is okay. Our AoE damage is actually quite amazing with this spec. We can definitely top charts fairly easy. But as for survivability, of course, we know that's pretty low. Mobility, still pretty low. So right now, when it comes to rated arenas on a Frost DK, it's not amazing. It seems like everyone's still playing Unholy when it comes to trying to push major rating, but that doesn't mean Frost DKs can't push up, 2300 plus in arena, which, most people aren't really playing that high anyways. But if you are looking to play higher than that, obviously you got to seek the other way, go Unholy for the mechanical stability, which Frost DKs are, in my opinion, doing some good damage right now when it comes to Battlegrounds and AoE situations. Definitely not the greatest when it comes to Arena. So let's talk about these honor talents. We got Gladiators Medallion, obviously, because we want to be able to get out of things on a 2-minute cooldown and actually time them correctly. I did have some fun playing Relentless, being that I'm an orc, but for the most part, Gladiators Medallion. I like to use Reinforced Armor with these big health pools. Obviously, 10% extra health is going to do quite a bit, and I think I'm sitting at like 5.8 inside of BGs, which is a pretty insane amount of health, like 5.8 million. The next ability I'm going to be using is Cadaverous when it comes to at least BGs. Sometimes I like to use Anti-Magic Zone if there's a lot of casters on the other team. And inside of Arena, Dark Sim is going to be your go-to ability. You need to steal CCs. You need to steal important things to get wins inside of a rated arena on the Frost DK, since we lack, of course, a lot of major CC that the other classes have. And for some reason at the moment, Dark Sim seems to be slightly bugged. Like, you'll steal an ability and you'll spam it at something and it won't go off for some reason. It seems to be a little hit and miss at the moment. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's supposed to be like that. But it definitely is. As for Arroya's going to be rocking Necrotic Arroya for that extra increase on magical damage. You just can't pass that up. As for dealing burst damage, we're definitely going to be taking Death Chill as a kind of mechanical stability on keeping on targets. Now, a lot of people like, or some people like to use Frozen Center with stacking with Tundra Stalker to increase your burst when using Remorseless Winter and actually runic dumping on a target. Generally sometime after using Breath, after Breath's down. But if you want to actually pad your damage to the maximum inside Battlegrounds, like you're trying to hit 120 million, you're trying to hit 130 million, you have to take Chill Streak. Believe it or not, Chill Streak will add 6 to 12 million to your top end inside Battlegrounds if you use it correctly and rotate it on a 1 minute cooldown. Now, it went from 5% damage down to 3% damage, but I didn't take into consideration the amount of health pool increase we were going to be seeing in Battlegrounds when it came to 7.2. So that was kind of a shocker to go in there and look at that and be like, well, we're going to have to take a look at this health percentage damage again, which it turns out to be fairly well. Now, obviously, if you want to maximize burst, Chill Streak's going to be the way to go since you're not actually using Frost Strikes during your burst when you're trying to maximize or you're trying to deal max damage within that short amount of cooldown. That's going to be all sinking into your Breath of Sindragosa. And as for a reduced cooldown timer on Empowered Rune Weapon, yes, it would give you a elongated Breath of Sindragosa every time it's off cooldown, but again, that's another 2-minute cooldown. So to increase your now burst, Chill Streak's going to be the best way to go, even though it's not the greatest of abilities, but it's also going to be the best way for you to pad damage and increase it to kind of the high amounts. But that's going to be it for Honored Talents and regular talents. When it comes to basic rotation on a Frost DK at the moment with this spec, there really isn't too much of a change, to tell you the truth, from the last one. It's still the same fundamentals, just you're generating a lot more now damage than with the other consistency spec. So coming in on this target, we're not going to be using Breath, obviously, in a lot of our major cooldowns since we're just talking about general rotation. So what we're going to do is you got to kind of decide when you're going to pop cooldowns is also going to affect your general rotation, because if you're going to use major CDs within, 10 to 15 seconds, chances are you don't want to use your Remorseless Winter since you need to use that during Pillar of Frost to get your stun off. So what we're going to do here is actually open up on the target with a couple of Obliterates and try to get, our Howling Blast proc. And if we don't get that up, we'll use Frost Strikes as fillers to just as fillers, really, to try and generate more runic power to land your Obliterates. And then soon enough with your normal rotation, you're going to try and set up at some time, unless you're trying to set up for your Breath. You're not going to use any Frost Strikes, you're just going to smack Obliterates to get up your runic power to burst on something. Now, it can be kind of confusing when it comes to PvP and Battlegrounds, or when you're 1v1ing DPS, because obviously inside of Arena, if you're going after killing something with a healer, you're going to open up on a target a lot differently than if you're opening up on a target in a Battleground and there's a lot of people around, or if you're just mainly fighting DPS. So there's a couple different ways you can switch that up. So the basic rotation, you're coming in on a target, you throw up your Remorseless Winter, and you start sinking as many Obliterates as you possibly can, hoping for a proc. I didn't get a proc, so I'm going to use a Howling Blast there to make sure I get my dots on the target. And then I'm going to dump Frost Strikes until I finally get a proc, and then I'm going to throw off that big Howling Blast proc and deal quite a bit of AoE pressure. The more people that are around, the more damage I'm going to deal. Now I'm going to talk about 1 minute cooldown. So that's really the rotation. It's really not extremely complicated. As for 1 minute cooldowns, I'm going to be talking about Pillar of Frost and Chill Streak, which Chill Streak's on a 45-second cooldown, which is kind of nice. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and come on the target, kind of like a normal opener. And generally, I'm going to open up Pillar of Frost pretty early with Remorseless Winter to generate from the stun. Usually about that time when I'm getting close to maximizing Remorseless Winter, I'll throw out Chill Streak. Make sure there's another target within the vicinity when you're using Chill Streak, or you're not actually going to maximize that major burst damage coming off on your Frost DK. So you really got to kind of chain those together to get your oomph, get your big damage out there as a Frost DK. And it's nice that both those are kind of on a lower cooldown scaling, to be able to do that, to make up for the time you're going to have. Because, of course, as we know, your major bursts are, at least our major burst, is on a fairly large cooldown. We got 5 minutes on Sindragosa's Fury, and we got 2 minutes on Breath of Sindragosa. Now, let's say I'm opening up on a target, and it's going to be 3 DPS versus 3 DPS. There's no healer involved, so I'm not going to take my time to peak my damage. In this specific time, you want to get your damage out as fast as possible. So this is kind of be like a DPS versus situation. Now, I got Remorseless Winter up. I got my Pillar of Frost. What I'm going to actually do, instead of waiting to use my Pillar with Breath of Sindragosa, if this is DPS versus DPS, and I'm also looking to pad damage, what I'm going to do as soon as I open on this person is I'm going to pop Remorseless Winter first, and then I'm going to go straight into using Pillar, and then you go into your, of course, normal rotation, using your fillers on your Frost Strikes, and of course your Obliterates. Now let's say I want to set up for Breath of Sindragosa. Now I want to do that generally quickly, and lay out my Breath of Sindragosa, why Pillar of Frost is still up, and of course lay in my Empower Rune Weapon, why that's going on, to just completely nuke and dump on a target. Now we also needed to insert Chill Streak in there, and Sindragosa's Fury, but normally you would actually focus on getting up Runic Power a little bit quicker, and then going about that with those major abilities. But for the most part, that's going to be the way you peak your DPS on a target, at least DPS versus DPS when you're trying to do it quickly. Now, if there's some kind of healer involved, obviously you're going to go in on the target, you're going to generate maximum runic power, and sometimes you'll even wait for some of your runes to flip around, because of course, since we're rocking Empowered Rune Weapon and not Hungering Rune Weapon, it's not going to be as elongated. So for one of the ways you're going to keep up that major breath for that cleave, of course, is making sure you have your runes when you lay out your breath, because if you don't, your runic power is just going to kind of drop. You're not going to get nearly as high as burst, because you're not going to get major obliterates off during your breath, which again, a key to a lot of your damage is those big howling blast procs. Is going to be just an insane amount for your single target and AoE. But I'm waiting for my cooldowns to kind of come back up here. But I mean, it's not too complicated to understand how to nuke a healer, or nuke through a healer also. It's just mainly getting your now damage as high as possible, your burst damage, your from 1 to 5 second damage as high as possible. So obviously everything kind of comes into play. Your avalanche starts coming down when you throw up Pillar of Frost. Your Remorseless Winter is going to do more damage. Everything's going to do more damage. You're going to try and throw out Chill Streak, so it's bouncing back and forth on the targets while your breath's pumping out, while your obliterates are coming off, while your howling blast procs are coming up, and then you're going to throw out your Sindragosa's Fury in there somewhere. But honestly, it hits for about as much as a howling blast proc now, so it's like there's give and take with that ability. It's like most of the time, if I'll just take the Howling Blast proc. I don't even need this dragon anymore. You guys nerfed it into the ground. No, I mean it's not a terrible ability for dealing a lot of AoE pressure during burst, but make sure you're using that with Pillar of Frost. Otherwise, you're not going to get the actual AP stacking off of it, and it's going to hit for some doo-doo damage. But overall, that's going to be what we're looking for, guys. Maximum burst, now burst versus DPS, things like that with this spec is going to be what's up. But overall, right now, we definitely have quite a bit of problem with survivability. With the amount of cleave that's coming off with a lot of melee classes, it's definitely harder to stay alive. So the only real thing we have to fight that at the moment is really just trying to outburst these other classes, which some of them it can be extremely hard. No lie, especially with all the cleave coming out, and of course the bigger health pools. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, this little rundown of what we got going on Frost Decay at the moment with our stats and of course abilities. As for kind of a little update of what I've been doing this week since like 7.2 came out, I ended up getting another legendary, which Empower Rune Weapon gains 1 additional charge, so I finally can do super breaths in World PvP is what really I'm excited for. Getting some clips of just killing maybe like 10 people with 1 breath. Maybe that's the goal, who knows, but I'm pretty excited for that. yeah, besides that, just mainly grinding Legion fall rep and stuff, and doing the new dailies. Like, that's, I guess, the basics for 7.2. I've been getting back into PvPing a lot more at the moment on my Frost DK. It seems one of the things I've been doing is hitting PvE way too hard and stacking just too much, spending way too much time trying to farm ability power and stuff, and just I got to get back into PvPing more. Like, I can't keep doing all this PvE stuff. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, and until next time, this was your boy Hazzed.
Every crown